Look, you guys, let me start this review of the Rmax by saying this is clearly just our opinion. Opinions are like a lot of things. You guys fill in the blank, so take it for what it's worth. We're not trying to piss off any of you Yamaha fans. That's not our job, and we're certainly not going to talk as much smack about this as we have with the YXZ in the past. We might actually surprise you Yamaha guys. We kind of like it. In some ways, right? It does a lot of things really, really well. We'll talk about that. Chase?
Before we get going, UTV Guide is in the building. He would like to say, so nice seeing you guys yesterday.
John, thanks for stopping by yesterday. It's always great to see you, and thanks for the help with any information that I was actually texting you about 15 minutes ago about the Rmax, so thank you.
Awesome.
What should we start with, Mitch? How about on the outside? Maybe let's just go over some of the visual things that everybody can see when they go over to the dealership. They're thinking about buying one of these, right? Wheelbase 80 something?
Yeah, 86.7. So I think that's a little bit shorter than most.
In this class?
In this class, yeah.
29, 30-inch tire, I think, factory?
Factory, depending on the model, Rmax that you choose. So I believe the base models come with a 29. I think the XTR came with a 30. And then if you go with the upgraded one with like an IQS system, it also comes with a 30 as well. 108 horsepower.
And it feels pretty good for 108. We were doing some drag race tests out on the street just before we pulled it in right now. It's still hot. We don't have an actual quarter mile out in front of the shop, so don't have any numbers for you there, but I will tell you this. Comparing this to some of the other UTVs that are in the space, like Commander, General, a few others.
Yep.
This one's pretty quick, and it actually has the quickest acceleration. So from start to finish, in our little test spot, this thing was 62 miles an hour, you said?
60 top speed, or
no, in our little drag race.
62, 63 miles an hour.
62, 63 miles an hour. Well, like for instance, a Commander was 59 to 60 miles an hour in the same area, so this is a little quicker mile an hour, but it got there a lot faster, a lot quicker. The top speed was the same in our little test, but this was a lot quicker out of the hole and through the mid. Top speed on this is?
You're about 70 to 71 if you're really pushing it to get it there.
On flat ground.
Yeah, flat ground. The Commander, I think, was right around 69, 70 miles an hour. So top speed is pretty much the same for both units. But like Justin was saying, out of the hole, this is a lot.
This is a quicker acceleration than, for instance, that Commander.
So everything I said the last time, I'm going completely backwards on. It was a while before we drove this, and a little bit of a refresher is always good.
Well, I don't think you can beat yourself up that bad. I know you said that this was slower. The thing is, when we're doing a lot of our testing, it's in whoops, and if the suspension works better than another vehicle, then it's going to be a lot faster. So you can use the power that you have even if it's less power. So I think what you were saying and what you're trying to communicate is when you get in the rough, then it was one of the slower ones because it doesn't put the power down. The tires are off the ground a lot. But on a flat drag race on the street, then it's actually the quickest one.
Yeah,
that we've tested.
Drivability came into a lot of my opinion on that one there. So comparing, I mean, stock to stock, that's where that came from. But yeah, it is surprisingly quick out of the hole for 408 horsepower.
Before we get into the goods and the bads, let's kind of dig into some other stuff. Okay, so on the outside, we've got some wheelbase numbers. We've got horsepower numbers. This thing wet weighs about 1,800 pounds, which is on the heavy side for some of the other vehicles that we've been testing in this space. It actually drives to me and feels like it's lighter, probably because the power gets put down to the ground pretty quick with that wet clutch. But it actually feels lighter when you hit rocks and things because factory suspension on this is extremely stiff. So stiff that it's probably comparable to one of the stiffest ones we've ever tested, which would be the Honda. Like driving a skateboard. So I'm not sure that they nailed it on that. It's probably too stiff for most intended uses, but that also means that there's a lot of benefit inside the shock, both with spring kit and internals, to make that stiffness go away and get some plush factor out of it and let the suspension work. So from a suspension standpoint, it's actually very subpar in my opinion. Super stiff, but it has a great place where it can go. The potential is there for it to work really well. We'll have some videos out for you guys showing this going through 1 foot whoops pretty handily without any issues, flat and level, smooth, you can turn it. It's not popping the tire off the ground at all once we've played with it, so the options are there. On the body of it, we all kind of got together on this opinion, which is completely subjective, but when it comes to the looks of this and the shape of the plastics, overall body lines on it, we felt like it kind of missed the mark and that it's a little bit dated. I think that this is probably really, really cool. What, 4 years ago?
Like 2015?
Yeah, 4 or 5 years ago.
2015.
You think that old? I wasn't gonna go that far, but
Hey,
you
man,
can.
my van's a
15?
2014.
I mean, that's 6 years old. I mean,
So I think that it doesn't have the body lines that they could have thrown at it. We all feel like it's lacking a little bit in that department, but that's the only thing we're gonna say there. That's, everybody has their own opinion on how things look. Interior. First, let me say I know that Yamaha is very sensitive to the rollover issue back in the Rhino days, and I know that they have to keep safety in mind and also cover their ass, right? CYA. So this shoulder guard on this seat is one of my biggest pet peeves. I know why it's here, and I know they have to have it, but man, is it a pain in the ass to get into this vehicle with this in the way. I mean, I'm a bigger dude, so maybe some of you guys that aren't as big as me can get in here, but I pretty much have to crawl around to do it. It's a giant pain in the ass. So I'd love it if they could have come up with something else for that. Back to window nets, I would have much preferred to have a window net on here we could snap in than having something solid like that all the time. We had some suggestions in our meetings about this, where maybe this, if you Yamaha guys are listening, engineers, if this was a clip mechanism where it could fold out and you could get in, and the engine is limited to say 0 mile an hour or 2 miles an hour until you pull this and snap it shut on here, like it would be a seatbelt. That would be much better to get in and out.
like a safety switch.
Yeah, safety switch on this would be good, or go back to a window net, because I know what you guys are doing. You have to CYA right here. Another thing that's kind of part of that is when you're driving, it's nice to be able to rest your arm on the door, or have a good place for it to be, even if it's not above the door. Maybe it's below, but in a comfortable place. That doesn't exist here because of this guard. You just can't do anything about it. And I know what they're doing, right? They're trying to keep you from rolling it over and cutting your arm off. I get it. But this is nice to be able to see. I love the vision of having this lower, but it would be nice to have something here for your arms to go to. Leg room. I'm 6'2" and a whole lot of pounds. I'm not going to tell you how many pounds, a whole lot of them. I can not hit the brake pedal on this very easily. Very hard for you to probably see on Chase's feed, but I have to actually lift my foot up to get onto the pedal. It's not a straight over shot, and for me to lift my foot up, I'm basically into the steering wheel right away. So for bigger guys, this is not the interior cab space for you. You might have to consider something else. Unless you're not 6'2", then you're probably gonna be fine. Layout of the dash, it's great. Got no problems with it. You know, I don't really complain about anybody's dashes and layouts. It's like last on my list of these things. I'd rather concentrate on the performance side of things than anything else. But one thing I love is the forethought put into these switch pots. These pre-done holes for extra accessories, and look at a whole bunch more ready to go, and plastic plugs to seal them up for you. That's genius. I mean, that really is just common sense. Everybody's gonna put accessories in these things. It's nice to just have space for it. Otherwise, there's no room in the dash for accessories. People don't accessorize. If they can't accessorize, they don't wanna buy it. You know, they're gonna buy one that they can. Chase?
My van has some of those, and UTV guy would just like to say 2 foot Justin. Boom.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm guilty of that. But I'll tell you what, just pulling my right foot up on that pedal is kind of a bitch, but it's a long leg thing. It's not anything else.
I don't think it's not the spacing, it's the way the pedal is set off.
It is. I would adjust this brake pedal like 2 inches lower. It's way higher than the gas pedal.
Yeah.
You know what? I'll shut up. That's just personal preference. One thing that I did not like in this, well, first, one thing I do like, I love e-brakes. E-brakes are awesome. No matter what it takes, I'd rather have that than throw it in park and hopefully it stays. But this shifter is not that easy to get into reverse from drive. I found that when we were rock crawling this thing, if you wanted to go from low to high, that's fine, that's pretty easy. But from there, it's a lot of effort to get around and through the gate mechanism to get into reverse. It's nice if you're on a rock to be able to pop reverse and boom, right into drive next door fast. I felt like I was always fumbling around with the shifter and not getting that done really quick. Again, if I drove it more than 100 miles, then I probably would be better at it, but one thing that I didn't like. I was gonna talk smack about seat belts, but these are not stock. So what I was gonna say is these aftermarket belts that are in here slide right off the seat, and so you can't ever get them over your shoulder easily, and especially with this in the way, it's a pain in the butt. But those aren't stock in this car, so I can't complain about that. But the vision over the hood on this is perfect, especially for any kind of rocks. It was great. Other ones that we've driven have a high hood and you can't see over them very well, or the seat's lower and you can't see over them very well. So they nailed it when it comes to vision. There's nothing in the way. Even the cut in the door is good for that. Steve, you mentioned that you didn't think it had very much power steering, but that's because we were driving another vehicle.
So I was comparing it to a different vehicle at the time.
Yes.
But what it is, it's right there.
Yes.
No bad feedback. Didn't get arm pump. Nothing like that.
Nope.
It was right there.
There is no feedback in the wheel when you go through the rough stuff. So clearly the front end geometry is done right. They don't have any bump steer issues or other wheel offset, scrub radius problems that we always tout. Clearly that is handled because it does not come back in the wheel. Doesn't have your hands falling asleep, and you don't have to white knuckle it at all. You can drive with one hand.
Yep.
So the power assist I thought was great, just about the right amount, and no feedback. Once the suspension's right, then we're able to run it a lot faster through some rough stuff. We were limited to about 20 miles an hour stock through 1 foot whoops in our test area, but after the fact we were 45 to 50 miles an hour through the same whoops. No, it is not an X3. It's not 24 inches of wheel travel pro or anything like that. It's never going to be. It's not supposed to be, but it's impressive what it will do for what it is. That is for sure. What we liked about it, for as much as we've said we hated the ride quality stock and that it gets better once we play with it, and the whoops are more capable once we do, I think that running through the whoops is probably its least favorite thing to do, because what it does really, really well is crawl rocks. I was really, really impressed with how this thing will go over big stuff, and I mean like rock crawling, straight up goat trail kind of stuff. That's boulders that are bigger than the car is, trying to make it over the top of that boulder to get to where you can get to 3 other ones that are also 10 feet tall. Big rock crawling stuff. This was able to go through a lot of rock crawl trails that other vehicles we were driving could not. And this did it without having to lock the front diff. So it kind of made short work of it. It's another reason why I thought it felt light. I was gonna guess this thing weighs 1,400 pounds because it went right over rocks so much quicker than others that weigh about 1,800, but it still weighs 1,800. So even more impressive. Clearly Yamaha's got something figured out when it comes to traction over a rock, power delivery from corner to corner, and stability, weight, position, and center of gravity, because I never felt like it was out of control. I never really wanted to slide off rocks, where a lot of other ones we drive, you get wound up in it and start slipping a tire, it'll slide out one side or the other of the rock. This did not do that. It was easier to see. So I would say from 1 being bad and 10 being great, and when it comes to rock crawling, then this is a 10. Another one that's a 10 is probably our Honda from the testing we've done. Hondas kill it, KRXs kill it, this kills it. Not very many others do.
There's a pattern there.
What's that?
Because you just said all my favorites, all the bike manufacturers: Honda, Kawasaki, Yamaha.
Well, you do have a point there.
Boom.
Yeah, not too bad.
So once we catch up to these Can-Ams, you're in big trouble. Bum bum doom.
In bone stock form, these are extremely stiff and they're not going to run through the whoops, and it's going to hurt you. With some work, they're going to be amazing through the whoops for what they are. And the one thing it does, whether it's left alone or worked, it's going to crawl some rocks. It's going to crawl a lot of them. So I would seriously suggest, if you're going to be in narrow trails with a lot of rocks, and this is a good choice for you. Also, the clutch design on this, it's a centrifugal clutch, but it's also what they call a wet clutch, which is hydraulically assisted also. And it is amazing for rock crawling, because you basically are never going to smoke a belt. It has an excessive amount of grip force on the belt for low speeds, low RPM, whether you're in low or in high. And the delivery, when you have it in high, like we just proved kind of on our little drag race test, it's pretty quick too. So that's a really good thing to have on these. Another vehicle that has that style of clutch is a KRX, and you can't smoke a belt in the KRX in rocks. They definitely will cross some rocks. Now they're underpowered and we complain about them for desert racing, but they have a lot of things that they do well. So that's it on suspension. Mitch, you want to take over on some of the structure that we found in the chassis?
Yeah, so just kind of looking over and glancing at it, really like how it has 12mm bolts and hardware for all of the arms to the frame side.
So what other vehicles have 12mm hardware, Mitch?
Oh man, you're going to test like Turbo S?
It's all big stuff.
All big stuff, yeah.
XP Pro, or Pro XP. Did I say it right? Pro XP?
You said XP Pro first.
I did. So it's Pro XP, Turbo S, and some of the newer, big horsepower stuff is all 12mm.
Yep.
So it's nice to see them putting big hardware in something that is not big horsepower design vehicle.
Yeah, so leading into longevity of this vehicle, I think it's there on that side of it, just by supplying, that kind of stuff to the frame side, bigger hardware, good boxing, as far as where the arms go into the frame itself. Even all of your shock hardware is 10mm on that side. The only other thing that we kind of saw was like the sway bar and the sway bar links. Now that's kind of smaller diameter sway bar, 10mm link hardware to the arm mount itself.
So we'd like to see a bigger link in that area because we find that all the 10mm stuff does fail in other vehicles. So the link is going to be a good addition for this, but I think that the small sway bar is basically contributing to the rock crawling abilities.
I was going to say it's kind of good and bad, if you will. So you have the articulation for rock crawling, but if you're wanting to go trail ride it, maybe get a little bit faster, you might want some more sway bar for that side of things. So
yeah.
But yeah, the boxing of the arms, where it mounts to, the hardware holding it all on there is pretty sweet.
All the frame mounts are double sheared.
Yep. Even in the back, like on the top mount in the back, the mounting points for that shock are all double sheared too, which is really nice. Again, 12mm hardware for all of your arm mounts to the frame. Just really strong, beefy stuff that you would not normally see in like a utility style vehicle. So that's pretgoing cool. Going back to the longevity, I think it'll last a long time.
So speaking longevity, obviously we didn't test this thing for 4,000 miles, so we can't give you what you're going to run into. We have talked to some people that own these, and they've got very little to report as far as damage or breakage. They pretty much just run the piss out of them. But I also think they're not running them 70 miles an hour through the desert, mostly crawling, mostly narrow trails, mountain stuff. A little bit of work, obviously you got a work bed, you can throw some stuff in the back. But we do know from typical Yamaha that like the axles and CVs are killer. You're not going to have any issues with that. Typically there isn't any breakage to worry about. Kind of like Honda has a reputation for, living a long time, like you talked about with your dirt bikes, right? Chase. But so we would expect this to last a long time, and that's what we're hearing from everybody that has driven them for a long time as well. One thing I didn't like about the next option for these is the 4-seater. Doesn't get much longer. It's only a couple inches of wheelbase in length, but they throw seats in the bed. So if you're buying one of these to be a utility and need the bed, you're not going to have the option in a 4-seater. It's going to be 4 seats, or it's going to be 2 seats in a bed. Something to think about. Steve, you want to add some?
I agree with you on the 4-seater. I haven't seen it in person, but I've seen some pictures, and it reminded me of like the Pioneer style rear seats, or like an old school Rhino with adding rear seats to the bed.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I would necessarily go the 4-seater, but the 2-seater for what
depends on what you're going to do.
It depends on what you're doing, though. Yeah. It all depends on what you're doing.
Steve had a really good point with this vehicle, and maybe I could preface this by saying, what would you guys categorize this vehicle with? What does this vehicle compare to? What other vehicles are in this market?
Well, we've talked about Commander in general.
Yes.
So basically, it's a utility, right? What would be the right term for that? It's not.
I'd say like a crossbreed almost.
J-Hubs had mentioned a Ranger too. He wanted to throw out how comparable is it to a Ranger?
I mean, the cool thing about them is you can do everything with them. So if you want to dedicate it towards like a ranch vehicle or a
Utility.
utility vehicle, you can do that. Or if you want to go out on the trails with your buddies and go rip some trails, you can do that too. So
I think the only thing, the lines are becoming more blurred between the classifications, I think.
right.
Now, the only reason that this wouldn't be a performance UTV is it doesn't have the travel numbers that you would expect, and it doesn't have a turbo and the power you would expect. Other than that, it's completely capable. It's going to go anywhere on any trail that an X3 or a Pro would do.
I agree.
Without the power. So I think as soon as you throw a bet on one of these, they're a utility. That'd be my definition.
I agree.
Yeah.
And when it comes to utilities, like we said, you'd have Commander, you would have a General, and like Huff
Ranger.
said, you'd have a Ranger. What else could we throw into that? There's a few. I mean, a what?
The old
Terex,
Terex,
yeah.
yep.
You would. I think that this is definitely above a Terex.
The Pioneer.
I think this is much nicer than a Ranger, personally. I don't think that it's as nice as a Commander. I don't think it's as nice as a General, but this crawls rocks better than both of those. So it has things it does, it has things it doesn't, and there's comparable vehicles. You're gonna have to get in all of them and drive them yourself. One of these days, I think maybe we will have all 3 or 4 in one spot, and we'll do a comparison, but not until we actually do reviews on all of them and at least give people a chance to take a look at the goods and the bads before we shoot anybody's hopes out of the water on that one. So sorry, Yamaha guys, you have to wait.
People are saying on here that they do want to see us give an in-depth review on the new Commander too, which I think is coming.
It is coming. We have spent a lot of time on the Commander, and also at the same time that we were driving this, we were driving a Commander 2. We have a lot of video and we have a lot of review for you. When we get one back in here, we'll go ahead and do that too. Also, this is just a live feed version of our review. We're actually going to put together an edited one that's going to be a little bit more high quality and touch upon a lot more detail in all of this, right, Chase?
Yeah, side-by-side comparisons with stock, with our stuff on it, all that good stuff. UTV Guide says recreational utility.
Well, that's
Okay.
I think that's a home run for description.
agree with that.
Recreational utility. So then, what would just utility be? I mean, would it be work utility?
Man.
And what is that now? Is that a John Deere Gator or what is
It
it?
depends on how much you want to categorize a category.
I guess. I like that description, John. It's perfect, but I wonder where this becomes just work. It's no longer recreation. I'd like to see what that one is. It's a ton of fun. So if you are working in this thing, you could blast it, and it would be fun while working.
Agreed. James Lynch said, speaking of Yamaha, you guys don't have a listing for the 2019 YXZ Spring Kit on the site. Is that the same as the other years? No, it is not. We have a kit for it, but we have to add a couple other things, so we just don't have it on the website right now.
That's the one we've got to do some slider machining and a whole bunch of machine work too.
Dividers, crossovers, spring retainers. So we do have one, but it's
a
gonna
lot
be
of work.
Yeah.
So it looks like we also have a work utility. That's what all of our other viewers are saying. So there's recreational utility and work utility.
Ranger and Defender are utility. Gator, Mule, work utility.
I was gonna say he
Okay.
mentioned the greatest one of all time, the Gator.
So I would like to go on
forgot about the
record and
mule.
say that we will never, ever review a work utility vehicle.
Not the Gator?
No, I'm not going to do it. Because if we have to resort to driving tractors around here, that's not what we do. It's no fun anymore. No. Skip it. Okay? No. We can let the farmers review those, not us.
Awesome.
You guys got
One last
anything
thing
else?
that I did like about this that I forgot about was the actual knob that you can switch from sport trail to crawl.
Okay.
I like how easy that is, how accessible that is, and it actually does make a difference when you change that knob from each one that you're selecting. I just thought that was pretty cool. The way it's laid out on the dash is nice. It's right there in front of you, so if you are crawling or you want to go back to the trail or whatever, you can definitely do that just by switching it.
The shocks were very easily to adjust too. We were adjusting them a lot on the fly out on the trail. You even had me do it, Justin, which I was pretty intimidated. I could say, not that
I was actually
bad.
very, very scared. The thing about shocks, as long as you've got a set of Foxes on there, they're going to be adjustable. These are a 3-position switch. If you go with a higher model, then you've got IQS when it's electronically adjusted from inside the car. If we had an IQS version, I would not have had to ask Chase, and I would have felt much better about it. Safety first, you guys. Spend the
trust
money,
Chase.
never trust Chase. Not going to happen. Woohoo! So maybe I should wrap this up a little bit. All right. Then, oh wait, we have price. Price.
Oh yeah. What was the price?
So pricing on this is anywhere from 20 to 22,
24.
24? 20 to 24, round numbers, right? Depending on the model. That is pretty much right in line. Excuse me. That's right in line with all of the other recreational
Work utility.
recreational utility vehicles. All of those are about the same price. Sorry, Yamaha guys. I don't think that for the same exact price that this is the best one available. I think that for the money, there's more comfort, there's better ride quality, there's other things out there. But for the money, if you're going to go trail riding, you're going to go rock crawling, and you want to leave everybody else in their recreational utilities behind, then this is definitely the one to buy. Have it crawl some rocks, put it in the place that it's best used, and you have purchased the best one.
Throw a
That's
bale of
for
hay in the
sure.
back too. You could throw a bale of hay.
This thing
back
would
here.
crawl boulders
I'm
with
sit with a bale of
bales
hay.
of hay.
I mean, it
guarantee. I don't think anything would hold it back.
I like what Steve
It
said
does-
out on the
does
trail.
great.
It's a very specific vehicle.
Yeah, so I think there's things that work better for the money and ride better for the money. They don't crawl rocks like this, so if you do a lot of rock crawling, this thing's a home run. That's pretty much us wrapping that up on price. Now, the things that it did good, it does rocks really well. It does whoops pretty well once you play with it, not in factory form. The chassis is very stout. Components are situated very well. Double sheared, big hardware. We know that Yamaha's history when it comes to reliability, it's very good. So you're going to have something that's going to last a long time. Looks are in the eye of the beholder, so believe us or love it if you love it.
Chase, people want a side profile. Can you get them a side profile of it?
Side profile would be from the side, Chase.
I got
It
you.
wouldn't be from the front looking down the side, typically, no.
We got you.
So, I think that Yamaha did a very good job. I wish they spent more time on the design. I wish they had spent a little bit more time in the comfort side of things. But, especially if you're a Yamaha fan, then you're not going to be sad. You're going to be happy that you got one, and I would recommend that you do.